guys, it's Ashley, and for this video I'll be doing a quick walkthrough tutorial of how I did my Snowflake Winter Wonderland drawing. For this drawing I used Strathmore tan tone paper, a HB pencil, eraser, Prismacolor Premier coloured pencils. I have the 48 set, so the colours I used are all from that, and a white Pentel gel pen, which is optional. I just use it for highlighting, as well as a compass, which I used for the bauble as it's centered, so I wanted it to be a perfect circle, but I'll leave this all in the description anyways. For this drawing, I started sketching out what I wanted it to look like with a normal HB pencil, and started with a bauble by using a compass to draw a perfect circle in the center of the page, and then moving on to the snowflake in the center of the bauble, which is just a simple snowflake that has 6 points. I then moved on to the hand, which can sometimes be difficult to draw, but I used my hand as a somewhat model to see how the fingers curled, as well as the lines for a hand in this position. For me, I started with the palm and the wrist coming out from the edge of the drawing, and then making the curve of the palm, which curves and then goes somewhat straightish for the pinky on the left, and then angles up to the thumb on the right. I then drew the other 3 fingers and refined the shape till it was something that I was happy with. I then moved on to the tree, which I started by drawing the main branch that comes out of the top right hand corner of the page, and then from this drawing the rough shapes of what the branches of the needles will look like, branching off this instead of drawing the individual needles, as I will do this with the coloured pencils later in the drawing. And as it is a winter inspired drawing, I also put a layer of snow on the branches. I then drew the background, which I filled with snowflakes scattered around using different styles. You can use the one style of snowflake, but I thought it would look nicer mixing it up. You can also use similar ones to the one I designed, or you can go on Google Images and simply search up snowflake designs. I also filled the background with circles that overlap in some parts for the differences in light, but also for falling snow, which is completely random, so you can do whatever you think looks best, but I thought it would look nice like this. So as I mapped out the drawing with the pencil, I then moved on to adding colour, starting with the bauble and outlining it in red, and mapping out the highlights, which are mainly in the top left corner and bottom right corner, and then the shadows in the bottom left corner and top left corner. Next, I outlined the snowflake in white using an electric eraser to remove the graphite so it doesn't come up under the light. I then filled in the bauble with red using a reddish brown for shadows and a bright red and white for highlights, where I had already mapped it out. When I use the Prismacolors, I tend to use a circular motion to blend the colours, by first layering them and then making a smooth gradient between them. I then filled in the snowflake with white pencil and then outlined it with the Pentel gel pen to create a neat outline and make the snowflake stand out more. With the Strathmore tan tone paper, I really recommend it because it's really good quality in terms of how well the Prismacolors go on them, where the paper doesn't tear and the thickness is good, as well as the smoothness with the finished drawing. I filled in the gold string, which I did by using goldenrod colour and a bright yellow in the centre of the string to create that gold look. I then moved on to the hand, starting by erasing some of the graphite so that it doesn't mix with the Prismacolors and create a mucky look. I began by outlining the wrist with the nectar colour, and then with the brown moving up to the thumb for the shadows, and outlining the rest of the hand with the nectar colour as well as white where the highlights are, which is predominantly on the inside of the thumb in regards to the fingers. I then filled in the shadow between the wrist and thumb with a dark brown, a light reddish brown, and a nectar, and I filled in the rest of the bottom of the palm with light peach using a circular motion to blend the colours. With the thumb, I filled it in from the inside with white, and then from the outside with dark brown, and used light peach to blend these colours, and the light reddish brown to create the creases in the thumb. From this, I smoothed the bottom palm out and further blended the colours and used white to create a highlight between the bottom palm and the curve to the top palm, just to make everything look a bit more nicer. With the fingers, I used a light reddish brown, nectar, and dark brown to create the highlight and shadows to make it look more realistic, as well as using light peach to highlight and fill in from the top of the palm, and just blending all of this together and creating a shadow beneath the bauble with the light reddish brown and dark brown. And finally filling in the wrist by using light reddish brown for the shadows on the outer edges of the wrist, and blending with the nectar and then light peach from either side to the center to create a highlight with white in the center, making it look more realistic. With a white pencil, I then filled in a curved mound with the white, leaving a gap around the snowflakes, which is a snowy ground that I will later blend into the blue background. I then moved on to the tree, and with a dark green I drew the center of the branch in between the guidelines I had mapped earlier, which I somewhat erased so it doesn't mix with the Prismacolors, and then drawing in the initial needles by angling them off the branch in the section and then doing this along the whole branch. I also used the black in the center to make it a bit more darker, and in some places added black needles along the branch. I then used grass green and apple green along the branch, adding needles and going on top of the dark green to create contrast and also make the branch look more fuller and more realistic. I then added white on top of this in some places along the branch for highlighting, but also to make it look like snow is on the branch, but the white definitely blends the color in more nicer and makes the branch look more realistic. After doing a couple branches, I figured it's probably quicker and easier to do the whole tree with one color and then move on to the next color and so on, following the steps I did for the first branch. I then filled in the snow by filling in the white first and then using a light grey, adding shadows around the bottom of the layer of snow. Next, I used a powder blue and a peacock blue as well as indigo blue for the background. First, using powder blue and peacock blue to create a gradient between the white mount and blend this into the blue background. I then added black along the sides for the darker shadows for the background, which I blended in with indigo blue and peacock blue and filled in the snowflakes and circles accordingly. With the snowflakes, I used a white for the center, and if it was on the white mount, I outlined it in blue so it would stand out, and outlined or highlighted with the white gel pen as it made them stand out better and made the snowflakes a bit more neater and clearer. I then moved to fill the rest of the background where, with the circles, I used whites and greys as well as powder blue depending on the position. For the group of 3 circles, I highlighted in the bottom left corner and put a light grey shadow in the top right corner and outlined with the white gel pen. I then moved on and outlined all the circles with white or powder blue, depending on the position and how I wanted the colours to contrast. When using the Prismacolors, I did use a tissue paper underneath my hand, just to prevent my wrist from rubbing on the drawing and transferring colour to the other parts of the drawing. With the circles at the top of the page, I filled them with either white, light grey or powder blue, but with all still having a white outline so there was more variety and the contrast of light looked better. With this drawing, I was kind of inspired by a photograph taken by Toni, who is an amazing artist on Instagram. It's not an exact copy. I did change it up quite a bit by adding the bauble because I sort of wanted to do a Christmassy sort of drawing, but as well as changing the hand and background being a bit different. I really just use this for inspiration, so if you're interested in seeing the photograph, I'll leave a link to it in the description and to Toni Mahfud's Instagram, because his artwork is seriously unreal and really inspiring. Next, I filled the remaining snowflakes, which for the majority were all white, but some with a white background and outlined blue for contrast. With the snowflakes, I mainly filled them with the white Prismacolor, then used the white gel pen to outline and add highlights. With the rest of the drawing, I just created a gradient with the indigo blue, peacock blue and powder blue, moving from darker at the bottom of the drawing to lighter at the top of the drawing, which I blended together with the colours and using a circular motion. So that's the finished product and the end of the tutorial. I hope you all enjoyed and that it was helpful. Please be sure to give a thumbs up and subscribe to see more videos. Also, you can follow me on Instagram at AshleySaz0 for all my other artworks, and please be sure to check out my previous Wanderlust watercolor world map tutorial. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.